So we're moving on to the 5 domains, and we're doing point 3, which is communication and problem solving. As a parent, we have to be unshockable, I think. It's just Mandi's opinion. Because if you don't speak to your children about certain things, they're never going to come speak to you. So you have to start young when they are, at age-appropriate levels. You have to be able to answer their questions, but you have to preempt the conversations. I remember when my son was going into grade 7 and we were in PE in an all-boys school, his headmaster called us together at the start of the year and said, by the end of this year, your son will have probably had an exposure to porn, been offered drugs, probably had some alcohol, and might even be leaning towards a sexual experience. Our jaws were on the floor. We had to just pick them up. And we immediately went home. Neil and I had a chat. We were like, okay, we've got to teach Matt. What happens if his friends come up to him with a phone and show him pictures of naked women, and how are we going to handle this? Because if you don't speak to your kids about LGBTQ+, if you don't speak to them about social media and all these different challenges, they're not going to come to you. They're going to search the internet. They're going to go look on TikTok, and the advice they're going to get is who knows what. And so we want to be the ones that communicate well with our children. You don't want to be like the father who, when he was busy reading a newspaper, his son was playing with Lego on the floor. And the dad, engrossed in the paper, was sitting reading, and his son said to him, hey, Dad. And the dad carried on reading. He's like, It's like, how do you make babies? So the dad looked up. He was like, okay, my boy, come here. Sat the boy down. He's like, well, this, the man and the woman. And he started to tell him everything about how babies were made. Next minute, the son went, ew. He said, Dad, I want to know how to make babies out of Lego. Okay, so don't be that kind of dad. Ask clarifying questions. My boy, what do you mean, how are babies made? What do you want to know? You see, you don't just delve in to telling these things. You have to ask clarifying questions. And as a parent, we have to learn to listen well. They've proven that, these devices are so distracting, and our kids don't feel loved when we're on our devices all the time. To listen takes energy. You've got to listen with your body. You have to listen with your ears. You have to listen with your mind. You have to actually be present. And we have to ask ourselves, what is my child actually saying? Because communication is one thing. I can say blue, but we want my child to hear blue and not hear purple. And it's so important. So I often refer to communication. And this morning, I was speaking about communication as well in building resilience, like a tennis game. I really enjoy sport. And tennis game is a lovely game to play where you hit back and forward. I mean, it could be any kind of game where you move back and forward. But if I serve a ball and I hit an ace, that point is over. And that's kind of like saying to your child, how was your day? Fine. Nothing happens, right? But you actually want your children to communicate back with you, and you want to teach them about communication. So if you're in the teacher-trainer stage, I would encourage you to sit down with your kids and say, hey, I'm going to teach you how to communicate well and learn about it. Teach your children how to ask good questions. The way to wisdom is the ability to ask a good question. So what we used to do for a while is we would say to our kids, what good question did you ask at school today? Teach your children to ask good questions. It's not the why question, because why often puts your kids on the back foot. Why did you jump off that railing onto the floor and then you broke your ankle? Why? Well, I don't know. Well, they really don't know because their frontal lobe isn't developed. In fact, they say men at the age of 25 is only when their frontal lobe is developed. For women, it's about 21, 22. And that's why men go to war at such a young age, because they don't fully understand the consequences. The physical development of their brain is still happening. So when you say to your child, why did you do this? They really don't know why. It just sounded like a good idea, or my friend dared me to do it. We have to learn to ask, well, what were you thinking, or what was going on in your mind when you decided to jump off that railing? Oh, I don't know. He said, well, you must have thought something. And then your child will say, well, so-and-so dared me, and I was too scared to say no, so I did it. Now you understand why. And then you have a follow-up conversation about how they can learn to think independently, consider consequences, and you take it from there. And so learning to communicate, you really want it to be like this tennis game. So instead of saying, how was your day? You could say to your child, for example, tell me one good thing that happened to you today. Oh, we played this game at break. Oh, what did you enjoy about the game? I liked this and this and this. And then you start to go back and forward, about different conversations, but you actually have to teach them around that. You could use daily moments like driving in the car on the way home and getting them to talk about things. We need to understand that conversation is the heartbeat of connection. We kind of have this phrase, use your words. You have to state the obvious, because if you assume things, assume is spelled ASSUME. It makes an ASS out of you and me if we assume things. So you have to state the obvious. You have to externalize your values, state what you expect from your children. You have to learn to listen well and not interrupt. I don't know about you, but I often struggle with interrupting my children. You have to pause and allow them to finish their sentences and find ways to talk to them. One of the good ways is to look at their love languages. I saw the book outside about love languages, and look at ways that you could communicate to your children in the way they want to be loved. We often love others in the way we want to be loved. And so become a study of your child, see when they come alive, and then start to love them in a way that will meet their needs. The one day I was doing a parenting course in Polesmoor Prison in Tokai area, Constantia area in Cape Town, and it was with some wardens. And the one father he was a warden, and we were speaking around communication and listening and connecting with your children. So he decided that day to go home after work, and he said he was going to go sit at his daughter's bed. And he came back the next week and told me the story with tears in his eyes. He said he arrived home from work, and he sat on the edge of his daughter's bed, and she had her phone in front of her, and she just looked up and then carried on. And he said he just sat there and he waited. She looked up at him again, carried on her phone, and he waited. And then she put the phone down and said, "What are you doing here, Dad? Like, why are you sitting here?" And then he said, "Well, I want to spend some time with you." And then she looked at him and said, "How was your day?" And at that point, when he was telling me the story, he started crying. And he said to me, "My daughter has not once asked me about my day." And every day that week, after work, he went home and sat on the edge of her bed and had a conversation with her. It just took that moment of pushing past that intentionality and saying, "I want to spend time with my children. I want to connect with them. I want to be available." And it's not, I'm not telling you any rocket science stuff. It's really basic stuff, but it takes intentionality of putting your phone away and actually saying, "I'm going to talk to my kids. I'm going to be available." Because we're parenting in a digital age, right? And if you think about it, technology is neutral, It's all about how we use it, right? No. So I'm saying yes, no, it's not neutral. All these algorithms are geared to get you addicted, to use it more and more and more. At least they're safe at home on a screen, right? No, they're not. One of my friends, a while back, her son was in matric. He's probably second year at university now. When he was in grade 11, he was gaming and he got involved in a chat room. And without his knowledge, someone posing to be another grade 11 was actually a man. And this man then started threatening him and threatening his family and wanted a lot of money from them. And it got really serious to the point where this family, when the son eventually came clean about what was going on, they had to get outside help. And they thought this child was just happily gaming, and they didn't realize the things he got involved in. And that's why I started off by saying, if you don't speak to your children proactively about things, they're not necessarily going to come to you. Technology is not designed to be neutral. If I set screen limits, my child will resent me. Many parents feel like that. They might be angry with you, yes, but at the end of the day, they will actually thank you. And so I do believe that we need to find a way of navigating this digital world, because we're living in what they call a VUCA world. Have any of you heard that term before? VUCA world. I mean, if you look at that picture, for example, the dad's reading, the son's on an iPad or whatever, and the other son is on a device. I mean, that's how the world looks now. At any time, when I go to gym, do any of you go to the gym? And then recently in Stellenbosch, because it's a university town, we see a lot of students at the gym. The one time I was wanting to do this one weight machine, and I was waiting for this one varsity guy to finish, but he was on his phone. About 15 minutes went by, I carried on other things, he was still sitting there like this on the machine. And I realized he'd forgotten he was at gym. So I went up to him and I said, "Excuse me, can I please use this machine?" He's like, "Oh, I've got one more set to do." He did 4 of them and then got off and then carried on walking on his phone. I chatted to one of the personal trainers and they said it's actually becoming a problem because the students are forgetting they're at gym. They're sitting on a device and they're busy trying to work up, but they're forgetting to exercise because they're so engrossed on their devices. And so we have to understand this is the world our children are living in. It's a VUCA world. It's volatile. V stands for volatile. It's a military term that comes from the 80s. And so, I don't need to explain the volatility of this world right now. The wars, the things that are going in almost every continent, there's crazy stuff going on. So things are very volatile. Technology and trends are changing rapidly. The world is uncertain. The future is unpredictable. And it makes parenting sometimes feel like guesswork. Like, I don't know how I'm navigating the things I'm navigating. And that's where we need discernment. We need wisdom from the Lord. We need insight. And the C stands for complex. Complex, the digital world that shapes our children in ways we don't always see. Now, there's a difference between complex and complicated. So please just bear with me. Baking a cake is complex. Taking a motor car apart is complicated. Complex means the different elements. I've got my baking powder, my eggs, my cocoa, my flour, my sugar. I mix it all together. I put it in the oven with heat. It produces a different product. But when the cake comes out of the oven, I can't take it apart. But all the ingredients affect each other and they cause something to happen. That's complex. We look at what's happening in the world. It's like a ripple effect. All the different things that are happening are affecting our children. We can't go back to the way we were. We can't go back to the 1800s or the 1400s or whatever. Things are changing. But complicated means I can take a car apart. My dad used to be an incredible, his brain was wide. He could take a motorbike apart, lay it out, and then put it back together. That's complicated. You can take things apart and put them back together. But the world we're living in is complex. Things are changing and they're being influenced all the time. And everything is ambiguous right now. I saw a video about a year ago of one of the most famous pop stars right now singing a worship song. And we're like, wow, I can't believe this guy must be a believer. Like, it's radical. Like, everything in his life shows everything that he's not. And then we started scrolling through the comments, and it was a deep fake video. That in itself is fundamentally wrong. All right. But now you don't know if what you're seeing is true or not. How do you know what is going on? And that's where we really need wisdom. Again, not leaning into fear, but saying, God, you've given me agency, you've given me power. I can parent well in this age that my children are growing up in. But at the same time, we have to recognize that technology and digital devices do affect our children. 5-10 years ago, there wasn't enough research out there, so we didn't know how it was going to affect people's lives. And now they're recommending, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends no screen time for children under 18 months, except video calls, because of people living so far across around the world. They also say that excessive exposure to technology can interfere with your child's brain development. So it actually affects their brain development and reduces face-to-face interaction. Our children are already battling with face-to-face interactions and social skills, and we have to help them do it more. They've also found that children feel less seen and heard when parents regularly check their phones. Recently I saw a father and a mom with their child, and they were on their phones, and the child was just wanting their attention. We just naturally get so drawn by our devices. And interestingly, they've also proven that this world, the loneliness pandemic that the world is experiencing right now, a lot of it's linked to social media. But they've also found that an increased screen time and higher rates of anxiety and depression are linked. There's a direct correlation with increased screen time. I've walked with so many young adults who are battling with things because of the things they see on social media. And this one girl said to me, she saw this image of what a girl looked like on TikTok, and she knows it was edited, but that is the image of something she wants to attain, and she knows it's impossible. And she was battling with identity issues because she wanted that kind of image, and she wanted to look like that. And so how do we change the narrative from this generation being dubbed the anxious generation to becoming the resilient generation. I really, really think it is possible. And we do it by prioritizing face-to-face interactions with our children. Emily and I used to do this thing called research. So I'd fetch her from school and I'd say, darling, would you like to do research today? That was a code word for going out for a milkshake or going to a place to get something to eat. But it actually was just a way for us to spend time together. And then she even came to me about a month or two ago, Mom, I think we need to do research. See, you have to find ways for face-to-face connection. You know, when your children are younger, narrate your day. Start talking, saying things, stating the obvious. Set limits on technology. At the moment, I store my phone at night in the kitchen. We encourage our family to charge their devices outside of their bedrooms. When they were younger, we would set times where you're not on any device and they actually were separate. Even now, when we're at the table together, most of the time, I don't want to say 100% of the time, we don't always get it right, but everyone's devices are packed away because when you eat together, you connect. And I want to encourage you, eat together with your family. When my children were little and school was really hectic, in the evening I would set one side of my table for breakfast and the other side would be set for the dinner that night. So we'd eat dinner, clear the dinner table, but the breakfast table was already set. My kids were really sporty, so we had to leave home very early. But you know what we did? 5 minutes of breakfast together, no matter what. And just those 3 to 5 minutes of connection carries you all the way through. And so no matter whoever is at your home, we would eat around the table. And it was actually still to this day, it's very rare that we eat on our laps in front of a movie. So I want to encourage you, find ways to have face-to-face interaction and then model wisdom. You could do things like tonight's a digital detox evening and you light candles and you just do things very differently. Share honest ways with your children on how you handle your digital devices. It comes down to your value system, actually. In my family, we have transparency as a high value. So at any stage, and even to the point where if any of you want to come look at my phone or my iPad, you can look at my search history. You can look at anything that I have. I have nothing to hide. And a while back, we were chatting, we were counseling this one couple, and the husband and wife was like, no, I'm not giving my passwords to my spouse. I'm not letting them have access to my Facebook, my Instagram, or any of my things, or see my bank accounts. No, I'm not. And we were like, and it caused such a distrust. And so in our home as well, when our kids were younger, we insisted that we could have all their passwords for everything. We checked up on them because that's how it is. And we modeled it for them. At any time, we just leave our phones open. And if any of you ask, Mans, can I look up something? I'll say, yeah, this is my password, 1407. Have a look at my phone. I've got nothing to hide. Imagine living that way because then you have this baseline of peace. And when we hide things, that's when fear starts to creep in. And so with technology, we have to live in the light. More and more, we run a life group with young adults. I'm seeing girls addicted to pornography, more girls than ever before. And I know with men, it's a big issue. So how do we create a platform of openness and honesty in our home that it starts with our children? And then we disciple them and raise them well. So we have to teach our kids how to solve problems. I mean, that's just something that you can intentionally do. Now, I know I'm giving you a lot of information here, but I think in today's world, in building healthy habits, creating a family that flourishes, you have to think how to do these things. I already spoke about getting them to learn to ask good questions. I really believe in role playing with your children. Role play different scenarios. Teach them how to have a healthy disagreement. How many of you have been taught to have good conflict? When have you taught great conflict skills by your parents? Look around the room. No hands. How wonderful would it be if you taught your children how to have a healthy disagreement, that they can still have a relationship with someone and still have a difference of opinion? I really believe that that is possible. We can read stories to our children that model problem solving. We can encourage them to think clearly, to think critically, to think independently, not just go with the flow of what all their friends are doing. We have to train our children in a world where the world is a VUCA world, things are ambiguous. And when we parent out of that place, we can parent with joy and with confidence and with hope. And we can help praise the process, not just the outcome. We have to encourage our children that I can see you working hard at this. I can see you are trying, not just, oh, you've got 5 out of 10, work harder to get 6 out of 10 or 8 out of 10, but praise the process. Help them figure out how they can celebrate the effort that they're giving into doing something. Because this world is so performance orientated that our children need to settle and know, hey, I'm loved because I'm loved. I'm loved because I exist. I'm in your family. I'm loved just because I am. Proverbs 2, verse 2 to 6 says, turning your ear to wisdom and applying your heart to understanding indeed. Because if you call out for insight and cry aloud for understanding, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom from his mouth, and from his mouth come knowledge and understanding. And that's what we want. We want to be parents that help our children tune into wisdom, to hear, get knowledge and get understanding from the Lord, but they have to get it from us first. And I really believe discipleship is our secret weapon. It's that even tonight, just before we started, my son phoned me and he had a little minor accident with his car. He just bumped a wall. And Matt was like, Mom, what's the insurance details? Matt, Mom, how do I do this? This literally happened a few minutes before. And so we prayed together and I said, Lord, I give my son to you again. I just release him to you. Help him solve this problem. I can't fix it. I'm here. He's in Rondebosch. I gave him the details. I said, you have to phone tomorrow. You have to sort it out. But whatever we go through in life, our children are going to go through tough times. And there are times where we just have to keep releasing them to the Lord. I remember sitting in the car on the side of the cricket field waiting for Matt to finish cricket. Emily was playing around, and the Holy Spirit said to me, give your children back to me. And I remember I started crying in the car, and I thought, oh, someone. And I just, Lord, I trust you with my children's life. I give them back to you. You love them more than I love them, and that's a lot. So I give my children back to you. And we would spend time praying for our children, praying with them, praying over their bedrooms. And all of the stuff that I'm sharing, if you take nothing away, take this one thing, that you are your children's first discipler. They are your first mission field. And we need to keep giving them back to the Lord and keep raising them, because a disciple is simply a learner. An apprentice is a learner. And that's what our children are. And as we are learners, as we are disciples of Jesus, we help our children become the same. So I really think that discipleship and prayer is your secret weapon in all of your parenting, because the Lord can show you things far better than any speaker, any book, anything, because he knows what your children need. He knit them together in your womb, in the mother's womb. He prepared them in advance for good works. We just have to partner with the Holy Spirit, say, Lord, how have you wired my child? How can I affirm their identity? How can I raise them up and release them to become who you want them to be? And that ties in with the fourth point, guidance and growth. We need to have a plan. You see, the thread running through all my talks is intentionality. It's parenting on purpose. It's building healthy habits. I mentioned earlier that we love going to Hogga Hogga. And our family patterns, I really want to encourage you, figure out what's a good family rhythm and pattern. One year we were doing 8-minute abs for the whole holiday. This 80s video on YouTube. And as a family, all 4 of us were doing these weird 80s sit-ups and crunches and all these things, but it just built habits and fun in our home. We prioritize movement and fun. So one of the things we do is we go for a swim at 7:30 a.m. at Hogga almost every day, unless the tide is super low and there's no water. But we have been doing that since our kids were little. We'd wake them up, and then eventually when they got to teens, they were like, oh, we're like, come on, guys, we're swimming. Come on, come on, come on. We all go down. We walk down half asleep. We have a swimming cabbages. We get up. We go back up to the house, go have some tea and coffee and some, and then have breakfast and then carry on with the day. About 2-3 years ago, my kids took some of their friends from varsity to Hogga. So there were about 12 of them. You know what they did? 7:30 a.m. Took all their friends down to the beach for a swim, because that's what you do when you're at Hogga. It's those habits, those points of connection that your children know, this is who we are. And we would also say to our children with intentionality, with guidance and growth, is you're a heart. This is who hearts are. This is how a heart behaves. And so you externalize your values. What is important to you? What are the things that you need to stand firm on? And that is who you are. In Deuteronomy 6, verse 4 to 7, there's a verse that says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your strength. And these commandments I give to you today to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up." You see, it's 24/7 discipleship. This verse is called the Shema, and it means listen, pay attention. So we have to love the Lord with all of our hearts, our mind, and strength. But it says here, impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit down. So I'm sitting, talking to them about the kingdom, how to grow up, life, living in a VUCA world, all these things. When I walk along the road, as I'm fetching them from school, as we're going to sport, as we're going out to meet people, I speak to them about how to live in this world. And then as I walk along the road, as I lie down, as I get up, you see, it's all of life, because all of life is sacred. Parenting is a sacred task. Your washing dishes is sacred. Your discipling and praying with your children is a sacred task. I really believe that there's no sacred secular. You know, if you had to say to Jesus, "Tell me about your spiritual life," he'd be like, "Huh?" Because all of life was sacred. And so parenting is a sacred task, and it's an incredible privilege. And when we do these things, when we disciple our children well, when we guide them, when we grow them, we fill up their love tanks, they become who God intended them to be. Do you know the meaning of your name? Some of you, yes? Some of you know, yeah? So your meaning of your name is linked to your identity. Mandi means worthy of love. I grew up believing I was not loved. I grew up believing that if I performed well, my father would love me more. See, the enemy sows seeds and shoots arrows directly into everyone's heart in different ways. And the enemy is not like, there's nothing new under the sun. So what your name means is often the very area you get attacked and challenged in. Think about it. What does your name mean? I was talking to this woman the other day. She is about 56, 57 years old, and she was speaking to me about not feeling worthy, not being enough. But her name means light bringer. And she just felt like she couldn't do that. And so as we were speaking about these things, it came up that she realized, oh, I don't know who I am. And my identity as a light bringer in dark spaces is not settled. And so I said to her, well, go back to the Lord and say, God, who do you say I am? How have you formed me? How could I be secure in who you've made me to be? So when you speak your children's name, you speak that over their lives. And that is incredibly powerful because your children can grow up knowing who they are, but the meaning of their name is a clue to their purpose and their identity. So I want to encourage you, speak it over them because it fills them up. And when we do that, and when we encourage our children, they really, their love tanks get fuller. And so there's fruit that comes from encouragement. Encouragement simply means like putting courage in. The root of prophecy is actually encouragement, speaking things into being that are not yet. And so confidence and self-esteem comes as a fruit of building your children up. You want them to grow to be comfortable in their own skin. You want them to be resilient and persistent. You want them to keep bouncing back from failure. Because we all are self-talking all the time. You know, they say that we have over 30,000 thoughts, and most of them are negative. So how do we make sure the narrative in our children's minds is a positive narrative? It's one that comes out of heaven. We need to encourage our children to communicate well, and we find ways to help them be validated. And then we also want our children to experience kindness and empathy, because when they experience that, they can be generous and be kind and empathetic, because the way we speak to our children becomes their inner voice. And what happens is if the inner voice in your children's minds is negative, they don't hate you and they don't stop loving you. You know what happens? They stop loving themselves. And so I want to encourage you, let your inner, the voice that you speak of your children, and I'm not saying now you don't discipline them, you don't correct them, you don't put boundaries in, and you don't be firm. You know, you don't become a doormat as a parent, but you pay attention to the words that you speak. And that leans onto resilience. So this morning we did a deep dive. Hang in there, guys. Are you guys all okay? Do you need a stretch? Are you with me? So resilience, I think, is a word that our children are going to need to grow into more and more than ever before. Resilience is a skill that you can learn. Some of us might be more intrinsically motivated and we can be more resilient easier than others, but it's a skill. It's not, you're either resilient or you're not. It's definitely a skill you can learn. And that comes from creating a safe home, a secure environment. Now, that doesn't mean burglar bars and all those things, but it means looking at your home and walking through every room and saying, does my child feel safe and secure here? Can they leave their weapons and their armor at the door, so to speak? Is our home a space where they could live and thrive? And there's this, when I was thinking about that, I thought, wow, there have been times where my home hasn't been a haven. It really takes a lot of intentionality. And one of the things I realized was when we led a missions organization, my mom was house sitting for us at the time over one weekend. And when we came back, she said, Mans, I don't want to house sit for you anymore. I'm like, why? She said, no, I don't like being here. So I said, what do you mean? She said, well, your home feels like an office. So I thought, huh? She said, well, there's debriefing sheets up in the TV room. There's church planting brochures on the dining room table. And there was other missions stuff in the house. So my house didn't really feel like a haven. And then it dawned on me, you know, when my kids come home, they either have to go to the TV room or play outside or their bedrooms because we were having meetings. And I thought, they don't feel like they could just be anywhere. Then Neil and I had a chat. And we thought, that's it. So we decided to literally, we said we're meeting at other places and in the afternoons. If we need to meet at our home in the morning, we can. The kids are at school. But our home is for our family and for friends and for connection. It's not an office space because it's so easy to let all your work stuff be everywhere. You come home and you just can't disconnect. So how do you create your house to be a safe haven, a place where all of you can relax, not just your children? In building resilience, we need to help our children develop a growth mindset. So in Africa particularly, there's this fixed mindset mentality, which means resources are fixed and they're scarce. Your education or your ability, your intellect is limited and is fixed. A growth mindset means that I can learn, I can grow, I can change, I can get better with practice. We want our children to recognize that because that's where the faith comes in. It says in Proverbs 1 verse 5, let the wise listen and add to their learning. We are able to have a growth mindset. We can change our children's language from I can't to I am learning. And we do that really by modeling it and showing our children we have a growth mindset. And so to that end, every year I've decided I want to learn new skills. So I've learned everything from cooking courses to, I've done everything. Not everything, I've done so many different things. My latest venture is learning how to swim properly. The reason being is I've been swimming since I was 3. I can surf. I'm a water baby. My dad was a fisherman, so I grew up on water, but I never ever swam in galas. I never ever did swimming at school because do you know why? I had fear in my life. And when I was 6, I said to my mom, will I win if I swim in this gala? And she said, no, she can't guarantee it. So do you know what I did? I threw the biggest tantrum you've ever seen and hid behind the grandstands and flat out refused to swim. I never swam in any school thing. I don't know how I got out of it, guys. But I did not do any swimming. And so I thought, you know what? I want to learn something new. So I've hired this coach. She's 24 years old. And I said to her, Katya, treat me like a 6, 7-year-old. Pretend I don't know anything. Now I'm learning to breathe, kick, pull. And, it's so confusing half the time. Learning to kick with my, out from my hips and not just my feet. And it's very complicated, actually. But you know what happens is I get out of the pool and I'm smiling. I feel so alive. I feel exhausted and hungry, but I feel so alive. Because in many areas I'm leading. I'm running a coffee shop. We're leading in different things. And being able to learn and grow, I can improve. It translates to other areas of my life. And so my kids are seeing me do this, and that gives them impetus and courage that they can keep learning and growing. So what is one thing that you could learn before the end of the year? It could be learn how to carve a chicken. It could be learn how to make a new meal. It could learn how to do poetry. You could learn some new skill. Let your children see you learn, and then let them also see you struggle, and then let them see you overcome. Because if they see mom and dad can do that, then that means I can do that too. So just make a note. What's one thing you could learn before the end of the year? And incidentally, when you learn a new skill, it boosts those happy hormones. And we all need a lot more of those happy hormones going through our body because this world really pushes us down and we need to learn how to rise above. And so part of that, of having a growth mindset, it's something that we can model for our children. We also need to teach our children that resilience is learning to struggle well. It's not avoiding it, but learning to struggle well and to overcome the struggle. Resilience is not just getting up again, but it's learning to adapt. And they also do that through having good diet, good exercise, and good sleep. They say that this world is actually very sleep deprived. That's going to be one of the future careers, is a sleep consultant. I thought, I'd love to be a sleep consultant, teaching people how to sleep well. There was one guy that I was doing some coaching with, and he came and he's like, I'm just so tired and I'm so irritable. And so I started to ask questions. And then I said to him, well, tell me about your sleep. It's like, I go to bed 11, 12 o'clock. I'm up at 4, but I can't sleep because there's a light right outside my window and I haven't got curtains. And it shines right onto my bed. I'm like, duh. You're exhausted. He's like, oh. Another guy that I was also doing some coaching with, he'd forget to eat. And then he'd drink coffee and he came to me, he's like, I think something's wrong with me. I'm just shaky all the time. Really, I kid you not, he's a father of 2 kids. He's like, no, I'm just shaking. I'm like, well, tell me about your life. Started to ask questions. I said, well, what do you eat for breakfast? Like, no, I don't eat breakfast. I say, well, how many cups of coffee do you have a day? 6 or 7. And I'm like, and lunch? No, I forget to eat. I'm like, oh. And the other day he reminded me about that. He's like, do you remember when you told me about that? That changed my life. So how are you feeding your children to have enough petrol in their tank to do the things they need to do? How are they sleeping? Are they getting enough sleep? In my book, the new one, The Oak in the Storm, I speak about the different amount of hours your children need to sleep. It's really, really important. It changes your short-term memory into long-term memory. It brings healing. And then exercise. We need to get our kids to move. Often kids are acting up, but actually they've just got excess energy. So you know what I would suggest you do? And this is what I used to do. Find a new song. Okay, this is dating me, but I used to play Eye of the Tiger, because they said any sports event Eye of the Tiger is played, and I used to make my kids do push-ups or sit-ups, and then ask them to tell me how many they did. They used to love it, and we used to make a game out of it. But it would just get rid of excess energy. They would do mini Ironmans around my house. So they would start off with, they swim up and down the pool for like 3 or 4 lanes, then they'd run around the house, then they'd jump on their bicycle and they'd ride around the garage, and I'd have to time them. Oh, no, guys, you can do it faster, go again. But it just got rid of that excess energy. So get your children moving, get yourself moving. I've solved all of the world's problems through a run. It really, really helps you. And then dealing with mistakes, asking your children, what did you learn today? Encourage failure, encourage mistakes. I actually even do it in the coffee shop. I say to our staff, practice your latte art, practice these new recipes with coffee. To our culinary lead, I said, Nika, create some new things. If it doesn't work and it doesn't sell, so what? We'll try something different. But don't be scared to try. And when your kids try something and it doesn't work out, don't come down hard on them. Celebrate their effort. Praise their outcome. Don't praise the outcome. Praise the effort, not their outcome. And lighten up. Laugh in your home and celebrate that. I do really, in that book on The Oak in the Storm, there's so much more on resilience, but I wanted to touch on it because if you're building healthy habits, you can't do that without building resilience in your children's life. And then the 5th point is parental self-care. You can't give what you don't have. We were flying in from Cape Town, and when you sit down in an aeroplane, and I don't know about you, but not many people watch the air hostess and the stewards do their thing, right? Put your belt on or whatever. And it says, in the event of cabin pressure loss, the oxygen masks will fall. And then they said, when I was listening to them, they said, well, then what you must do is when the oxygen mask falls, you must put it on all the children first. Have you heard that? No. What did they say? Put it on yourself first. Why did they say that? Because if you need oxygen and you're not breathing and you're not alive, you can't help someone else. So you can't give what you don't have. You can't give out of an empty cup. And the reason I bring that up is because so many moms, particularly that I speak to, struggle with mom guilt. I can't take an hour off to go exercise or go do this thing with my friend because I've been working all day. I can't go do this because I just feel too guilty. And I want to say to you, do away with mom guilt. Now, I'm not saying you just look after yourself and you go to the extreme of the self-care movement, but it's scriptural. In Matthew 22, verse 36 to 40, it says, Teacher, what is the greatest commandment in the law? And what do you think Jesus says? Love the Lord your God with all of your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And this is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. You can't give what you don't have. And so as parents, I want to encourage you to take stock of your life, because a peaceful parent creates a peaceful home. Think about it. You replicate who you are in your children. They're counting on you to say and do what you say you're going to do. So how could you put the oxygen mask on yourself first? How could you fill up your cup before you just keep giving to your kids? And one of those things could be that you need to reconcile yourself to your past. It could be that you sit and think about, this is what happened to me as a child. These are some of the things I've been through in life. These are the things I need to deal with, that you then go pray with someone, you go for counseling, or you just accept it. That's my past. It's not who I am, because in Christ I'm a new creation. And then you help your children do the same. And then you think, what do I need to do to be a better husband, a better wife, a better mom, a better daughter, a better friend? I know what I need. I've learned that over the years. My daughter and I were in an armed robbery together, and we had to deal with the trauma of it all. But I learned from that I need to exercise. I need to walk. I need to move. It helps me solve so many problems. I've learned about the physical benefits, but I've also discovered the mental benefits that come from just walking. It's really, really good for 30 to 40 minutes, what it does in your body, what it does in your mind. And so that is what I need to fill myself up with. I also know I need to have regular times of prayer. I need to have regular times of reading scripture, because that reframes my thinking. Incidentally, the last thing you think about before you go to sleep shapes how you wake up in the morning. So could you consider perhaps reading a psalm before you go to bed? Not be on your devices. Because when you let that filter in your mind, it shapes how you wake up in the morning. What do you need to do to fill up your cup? Do you need to improve your sleep? Do you need to go speak to someone? Do you need to laugh a little? Do you need to just relax a bit? What is it that you need? You know, that research has shown that parental well-being strongly predicts child well-being. So what that means is you need to think, what are the triggers in my life? There was a man, he's passed away now, his name's Floyd McClung, and he mentored Neil and I for many years. And he used to say to me, Mandy, if there's things happening in your life and you feel like things are being triggered and pushed, it's your button that's being pushed. So you got to ask yourself, what is that button? And then you have to take responsibility. And so as you parent your children, think about those things in my life. What are the things I need to take responsibility for? I'd like you to take a moment and think about the daily practices that you have, your body, your soul, your spirit. What are the things that you need to do to start to fill your cup up? To do away with mom guilt, do away with, I don't know if there's dad guilt. My husband said, no, he doesn't have dad guilt. But what are the things you need to let go of and fill yourself up? Because we all need connection, we need friendship, we need relationships, and that will help you be a better parent. So today I know I've given you a lot of information. I know it. A lot of it might be new, some of it might be old stuff that you've known. But we've discussed heart awareness. We've discussed emotional connection, emotional regulation. We've discussed emotional intelligence, how you can connect with your children. We've discussed consistent boundaries and loving discipline. Discipline is training, correcting, and guiding your children. It's worthwhile thinking through those things and the age-appropriate levels of what your children need and what boundaries are in place. One mom came to me and she was talking and she said to me, I realized I don't have any personal boundaries. I'm the one that's causing half the problems in my home because I'm working myself to a standstill. I can't say no to my children. I can't say no to my friends. I can't say no to anyone. And so I'm not helping my family because I'm rattled and I don't have any boundaries. And so she had to work it through in herself. And then we spoke about communication and problem solving, teaching our children how to communicate well. We spoke about guidance and growth, about encouraging your children and having a growth mindset, building resilience in their life. I know I haven't done justice to resilience, but I do know that we need to build resilience in today's world more than ever before. And I concluded with parental care and support. What is the parental care and what is the support that you need as a parent to flourish so that you could help your children flourish? You know, you don't have to get everything right. There's no perfect parent. There's no perfect child. You just have to be present. You have to be teachable. And you have to keep showing up. That's it. Be present, be teachable, and keep showing up day after day. It's not about perfection, but it's about the direction that you're moving in. And I love what Jill Churchill said. She said, there's no way to be a perfect parent, but a million ways to be a good one. So take pressure off yourself. There's no way to be a perfect parent, but a million ways to be a good one. So we're in this together, mums and dads, aunts and uncles, grands, and everyone in between. So show up. I want to encourage you, show up in your home, love your family fiercely, and parent on purpose. Thank you very much.